while. It's been a while. I think it's the heritage and the people. The heritage and the people. I'm good. It's been a while. I think it's the heritage and the people. The heritage and the people.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Promote the Hell Out of It. I am back after taking a bit of a break through April to catch up on some personal projects, as well as it was my birthday at the start of the month, my 30th, and as you can imagine, I spent a bit of the month hungover from celebrating at the start. But I am back with it now, and I am so excited to share my new guest with you. I met Shen whilst travelling in Asia. He lives out in Penang, Malaysia, and runs some of the coolest establishments that we saw out there. So I was really excited to chat to him about his progression, how he got to where he is now, what he did right, what he did wrong. We also cover a load of other subjects, including gentrification, whether it's becoming a problem in Penang, and obviously touch on a bunch of other stuff. But I was really excited to catch up with him because he is a really good guy, interesting to talk to, and has done some incredible stuff, including make some of our favourite ever cocktails. He runs a cocktail venue out there. I won't tell you where it is because finding out is part of the fun. But you do get some really cool pins. I will try and see if this focuses and doesn't fuck up the entire video. But yeah, you get some really cool pins. You get nice and drunk, and in our case, we met some of the most amazing people that we did in our time in Asia. Well, we met some cool people in a lot of places, but Shen and a lot of the people that we met at his venue, Backdoor Bodega, we'll talk more about it in the video, were incredible. And in fact, my partner Jane celebrated her 30th birthday whilst out in Penang, and some of the people that we'd met through Backdoor Bodega actually came out to her 30th birthday and celebrated with us. So yeah, anyway, without further ado, this is the conversation I had with the wonderful Shen. Enjoy.
It's been a while. I think it's the heritage and the people. The heritage and the people. I'm good. It's been a while. I think it's the heritage and the people. The heritage and the people.
Hello.
Hi.
Shen, it's
Hey,
really good to be talking to you. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's been a while.
It has. I can't believe it's been like almost over 6 months now, I think.
Yeah, it's really quick, man.
It goes fast.
Where in the world are you guys right now?
We are currently in the UK.
Oh, nice.
Pet sitting, looking after people's pets as a way of, we stay in people's houses, look after their pets whilst they're on holiday, and it means we don't have to pay any rent, which is great.
That's nice. That's like the ideal life.
It's pretty good. It's a good way to travel around the UK because otherwise it gets really expensive.
It is, yeah.
But we're looking forward to traveling again at some point. I think we'll stay here for about a year.
All right.
And then head off somewhere again because the food and the weather isn't the greatest.
Oh well, you got to compromise.
Yeah, that's the thing. You've got to compromise. It's nice. I get to be back. I get to see friends, make some music, and then I want to eat good food and have some nice weather.
True.
And we've been thinking about Malaysia a lot the past few weeks because it's definitely got some of the best food and some of the best weather. So on all fronts, it's the place to be.
Yep, I don't disagree.
Yeah, it's the place to be. And especially Penang is a very special place.
Penang misses you guys, man.
And we miss Penang. We miss Penang. And there's something about it which is, it makes it stand out so much from the rest of Malaysia as well, because Kuala Lumpur has got some cool things in it, but the vibe in Penang is very special.
It's different.
It is. Do you reckon that's because of the tourism or because of the actual people from Penang?
I think it's the the heritage and the people, and that in turn leads to having its own unique tourism. And yeah, I guess that's how it grew organically from the city that it was, like one of the first cities in Malaysia, when it was founded by Sir Francis Light. So I think it's different in the sense because it's small. So it's kind of like Singapore, where although it's small, but it's easy to manage and people are more connected with each other. So
Yeah.
that's why I guess that there's a different feel about Penang that you just can't find anywhere else in Malaysia.
Absolutely. I think it's really easy to get to Penang and very quickly establish the places you like and
Yes.
go back to them a lot, which could seem maybe boring to other people, but because of the people you're meeting and how quickly things change in Penang, it's
Yeah.
actually quite exciting. And there's something about the week finishing where I just remember looking forward to the next weekend, so you could hang out with the same people again.
That's true. That's true.
Which is it's great. It's great, and it's one of the only places where we've gone and made such a close friendship group so quickly as well, which is I'd like to say is due to Penang itself, but I think is probably largely due to you and your businesses, because you are very good at creating an incredibly nice atmosphere that connects people.
It's a small, I mean, it's a small space, it's a small business, it's easy to manage, I guess. That's why you get that it's not on purpose, it's just so the way it happens to be. And then it's me being there the whole time, so I guess that's why you kind of get like the personal touch and the entire vibe that I usually bring with me, I guess, to in all the things that I do.
Yeah, because it's not just one thing, obviously, and I do want to sort of go back through, because you're involved in so much amazing stuff that I want to touch on. But obviously, I met you at one of your businesses. But as you say, the atmosphere that you bring is in all of these things. There's a very specific you-ness to it, if that makes any sense.
I guess that's true. I mean, it's a gift and a curse. In some way, it also means that I can't really let go of things, like whether it's the clothing business or the bar. I have to be there. I have to be the one doing the things. Otherwise, it wouldn't be what it is.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I get that.
Yeah. So I'm forever married to the job.
Yeah, and I guess at times it can be overbearing. Like if things go wrong in 2 or 3 of the things at once.
Yes.
It must be a bit of a pain.
Yes. It's not like it doesn't happen. It happens from time to time.
Of course. I can relate to that. I can relate to that fully. I was joking with my partner Jane about the fact that every time I book in to record music, something goes wrong that week. Either we lose a client, or we gain a client and there's lots more work to do, or something bad happens in the family, and you can plan ahead and try and be organized, but no matter how well you plan, it's going to go wrong.
It happens. I can relate. It's just like the past year when like the bar was doing really well, somehow the t-shirts weren't doing so well. So instead of making enjoying the best of both businesses, I end up having to work harder on one so that I could support the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of how it turned out to be.
And then it's strange, because the times when things are calm, you're almost not prepared for them. Like you haven't planned a holiday, you haven't planned to chill out and just relax. You were prepared to work, so you don't enjoy them fully.
That's true.
Yeah, it's an odd one. Okay, so I want to work my way back with you through the whole process of all the businesses you've been involved with, so that we can try and get an idea of what motivates you to do so much. Because I think that will be the question on most people's minds when we start to go through this. Sure. But I think a good place to start would be obviously with the Swagger Salon, because I was reading the backstory and trying to remember the conversations we'd had over 6 months ago. Whilst quite drunk, so that was a bit difficult.
It's a challenge.
Yeah, definitely. But there's some very cool aspects to how the Swagger Salon started. So could you maybe tell us a bit about how you got going?
Sure. I'm pretty sure this is something that I've said so many times, but I'll try to make it as detailed as possible. So back in 2009, I had this. Actually, this was in 2007. 2007, I was in a different world back then. I was in music. I was heavily involved in the hip hop scene in Malaysia, in KL. So it was during one of these shows that I was performing at. I used to rap. That I decided to take a blank trucker cap and I scribbled the word Lansi across the cap. Now, this Lansi actually stands for cocky in the local lingo. It's not it's not the nicest way of describing someone, but you know, it's an attitude thing. So
Attitude's good. Attitude's
yeah,
good.
yeah, it's basically attitude, right? So I scribbled the word Lansi across the cap, and then this was in 2007, and I think it didn't hit me until 2 years later in 2009 that I thought that, you know, this could actually be something bigger. Like it could be a brand, it could be a clothing brand because of how people say, "Hey, nice cap," you know, like even though I just scribbled it on with a marker pen. So towards the end of my university days, because that was when, you know, the panic kicked in where you got to find a job and make your own living. Yeah, so that's when I thought if I wanted to make this happen, it's got to be now. So I basically produced a bunch of caps. So what I did was I went online. I owe my whole life to Jack Ma because of Alibaba. So I looked up Alibaba. I found a cap supplier all the way in Bangladesh. Now this dude, I mean, I found a few others in China as well, but the difference was these other companies, they're huge, right? So they go by the thousands. Like, oh yeah, you need to make 5,000 caps, 3,000 caps.
Yeah.
But this dude in Bangladesh, he's a small business, and basically welcomed me with open arms. Like, sure, you want to do 50 pieces, we'll do it. You want to do 100 pieces, we'll do it. He was as eager to make it happen as I was. So I managed to get like 100 or 200 caps done from him with a very small amount of money spent, right? So I received my caps like 2 months later, and that's when the problem started. Like, I didn't know how to sell them. So I started approaching all the other streetwear shops in Malaysia, but the problem was back then local brands weren't really a thing. It was all the international brands, like like Supreme was starting to be a thing back then.
Yeah.
And yeah, Nike SBs and a lot of all these clots, you know, all these other different streetwear brands that were international but not local.
Yeah.
So no one really took my brand seriously.
What were you saying to them to try and convince them?
I was like, because I think it was also me being, you know, because I was a rapper, right? Rappers are usually egoistic. They think very highly of themselves. So I just went up to these shops and like, hey, this is my brand. Would you like to sell them in your store? They're like, no, I've never heard of this before, man. Yeah, so that was a roadblock right there. And then at that point, I think also because I wasn't really a business person back then, I just wanted to sell like these caps that I had. I just sort of like, I didn't really plan out a plan of how do I solve this. I think I just somehow got myself a job and thought, okay, I'll figure this out later. And I got myself a job in advertising, right? And then it was only like about half a year later that I realized that I really should sell my caps because it was in the way, basically, of my tiny room. So then I thought I would, since no one wanted to sell my caps in their store, I should just set up my own store online because it was free, right? So I set up an online store. I called it the Swagger Salon, and I sold the caps. So the Swagger Salon, the concept was basically you go to a salon to beautify yourself, right? Whether it's nails or your hair or your face. So this is from a fashion point of view, so it's a Swagger Salon, and basically to sell nice clothing. So that's how the Swagger Salon came about, as an online store to sell my caps, which I had no idea how to sell otherwise.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It's so good. And it's funny you were saying about trying to sell your things to actual shops to start off with. There's a documentary we were watching on Netflix. I can't remember the name right now, but I will research it and put it in the notes for everyone to click on. But
Sure.
One of the stories is about someone that makes some trainers and was going from store to store trying to get them in, and had exactly the same reception to it as you did. Like, basically, who the hell are you? We don't know who you are. So what he did was he made some like really nice looking brochures that made it look like he was a professional set-up company with loads of stock. He didn't have any of this stock at all. And then went into the went into the shops and basically bigged himself up to look like a company, and said that he already had loads of orders from loads of other shops that didn't exist. Basically, lied his way through and managed to get into all these stores. But I think that without lying a little bit in that situation, getting that first sale is going to be tough.
That's true. That's entrepreneurship right there.
Definitely. That's why online is good, because for some reason, which I'm not sure is always the best thing, but for some reason people are more trustworthy when your website looks good than when your product does.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. I think I basically made use of a lot of free. It wasn't free. No, I hosted my site on Big Cartel, so I had to pay for it.
Yeah.
But I kind of had to force myself to learn how to do simple HTML for the landing page. I remember. So you go to the circusalon.com, you click on the landing page, and then it's like, oh, shop here, just one button, and then you go in, and that's the e-commerce store that I subscribed for. I think that was how I kind of started the store.
No, that's great. And I think I was reading on the site that your initial investment was like 5,000 Malaysian ringgit. Is that right?
Yeah. That was basically all the money that I had in my bank account. I still remember because I had to close my account because I was withdrawing everything from that account. Yeah, so I kind of wasted a few hundred ringgit because I did a really stupid thing. So I had to pay the supplier through Western Union, which was dodgy as hell, right? I mean, like, from inexperience, you wouldn't send money to someone that you've never met or really known through Western Union, because that's not getting anything back if anything goes wrong. But
unless you know you're doing something dodgy already. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes. So I went to Western Union because through our communications, the production cost of the caps were quoted to me in US dollars, right? So I assumed that I had to change my currency to US dollars.
Oh, no.
So I went to the money changer. I changed my money to US dollars. I went to the Western Union and said, like, oh no, you don't give us US dollars, you give us ringgit and we'll convert it for you. So I had to go back to the money changer, lose a couple of $100 to change back to ringgit.
No.
And yeah, so that was the initial experience.
Well,
and thankfully, it's a learning curve, and thankfully that the factory exists. It's not the scam or anything.
Exactly. Just for our UK listeners, that's 5,000 Malaysian ringgit is about £1,000.
Yeah.
Which I think is funny, because so many people think you need so much money to invest into something, and yet it's proof that savings like that are useful, and you can do a lot if you put the money in the right place. And I know you said you lost some money converting it. But you obviously had a product that worked, and you'd had that product lying around for quite a while. So you've done your research.
That's true. I think it's also because of a couple of factors that I can thank. Was because New Era caps. New Era are those fitted caps, right? Back then, in 2009 in Malaysia, there weren't any official New Era distributors in Malaysia. So the only New Era caps you had were either bootleg or they were really expensive. They were sold by resellers and things like that. And because I was in the hip hop scene, so New Era was the thing, right? You got the freshest caps and things like that. So I decided to be the bridge in that market where because bootleg New Eras, they are like how much would they cost? They would be really cheap, but then they're fake, right? And the original ones would be like almost 200 ringgit. 180, 200 ringgit. So when I came in, I sold my caps at like 100, 110, 100 ringgit. Nice. So it was a really nice, healthy margin for me. And also it was cheaper compared to original caps. So, and I think I came in at the right time because there weren't any other local brands yet. The local brands that were around were a bit different from the ones that people know these days. Like back then, it was like Tribe, it was Radioactive. These were designer brands. Like the people behind these brands, they were designers. And you know how graphic designers always seem to have their own clothing brands no matter what?
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are graphic designers who started their own clothing brands. They weren't streetwear brands like the ones that we have in Malaysia today, or that are on the same par as the Hundreds or Supreme or Palace and all that. It's not in the same circle. So I guess I was at the right place at the right time. for the brand to kind of blow up back then.
It's funny because you basically identified a gap in the market and created a product for it. But had you had any formal business training before then at all?
No, I would say the only thing I tried selling was my album, which really, really sucked.
Which
I
you
was
need to send me because I really want to listen to it, obviously.
I have a lot of copies lying around because unlike the caps, they didn't sell so well.
Maybe you should try again now. Like with what you've learned, it could do really well now. It could be
But
like
then
a
again,
comeback.
this isn't a product that I would really oversell, unlike the caps.
Yeah, I get you. The other thing I loved about that was that you originally wanted to get rid of the caps because they were in your way.
Yeah,
that's great.
my dad actually bugged me about it.
Yeah,
He was like,
that's.
he was
Yeah,
like,
go on.
my friend's daughter has a blog shop. I can ask him to ask her to sell it for you. I'm like, no, I'll handle it. I'll handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because I think some of the best businesses come from identifying that gap in the market, which you obviously did, solving a problem, which you had because you had a load of gear, and also something you love, which was obviously the hip hop influence you had in all of that.
That's true.
One of the really good examples I like of starting a business is it was caused by a similar problem to what you mentioned. Someone that had bought a load of music equipment, had it everywhere because he played in a band, had stopped playing in the band by this point, had a partner, and the partner kept on getting annoyed that this music equipment was just lying around. He wasn't
Being a
using it.
nuisance.
It's just being a nuisance. So what he did was start renting it out, and obviously you can get so much money for renting out this equipment,
Yes.
and it's not in your way half the time, that within like a few weeks his partner wasn't that annoyed at having this equipment anymore, which is great.
It is.
So from starting the Swagger Salon as an online business to having a physical store,
Mm-hmm.
what was the process there? Did it instantly kick off and it was an instant success, or did you have to sort of mess around with it for a while?
It wasn't something that I intended to do because I think starting it as an online store and realizing that how much I save compared to having a physical outlet, and like the business, it worked as an online business. I didn't really feel the need to have a physical outlet because to me it was just extra money that's going to be wasted, right? However, I think that was towards our 5th year as a brand, as a business. And I had this opportunity from the guys behind the Hin Bus Depot. You remember Hin Bus Depot, right? Yep. So at that point, I think my landlord, basically, the guy who would be my landlord, they just kind of acquired the whole piece of land a couple of years back, and then they were looking to give it a new lease on life. So I was one of the first few people he talked to regarding renting a retail space. So he gave me a really, really good rate. And at that point, I was also at a crossroad where I didn't know how to proceed with the brand because there were a lot of other brands coming up at that point. It was already 5 years into the business. This was 2013, 2014. And I guess I thought it was a good opportunity that I can give the brand something to show. Like people would see it. This is not just an online brand. It's actually a proper clothing brand. They have a flagship store. They have a boutique. It's not just one of those online things that will fade out after a couple of years. So I took on the offer, and I kind of got blindsided by the cheap rental because I didn't really know how much renovation was going to cost me. So it took a lot of money out for the renovation. But at least I got the shop done. And then also thanks to like a couple of high school friends who were doing interior design at that time, their solution. So basically they came to me and said like, hey, why don't we just work out? We're new. You want to open your shop, so we'll design it for you. We get it in our portfolio, and you have a very nice shop. So yeah, I said yes to that. So that's how the Swagger Salon got designed and got built out to what it is today. And yeah, so we opened our doors on December 6, 2014. And ever since then, it's been 5 years, almost 5 years now.
5 years and no regrets?
No regrets. Without the
Excellent.
Swagger Salon, there wouldn't be Backdoor Bodega. Hey, just saying.
Exactly, right, exactly. And we will move on to Backdoor Bodega in a second. I think we've covered the Swagger Salon quite well, and I will obviously link to it, put photos up of stuff, because it does stand out. I think before we'd met you, we'd walked past the Swagger Salon when it was closed and been like, this is somewhere we need to come.
Right.
It looks good, and all the things you sell are awesome. I want them all. I wish I earned more money so I could buy them all.
Thank you.
But everyone should definitely go on the site, so I will link to that. So what came next? What came next? Because you're involved in a lot of stuff, and it can't have all just exploded at once, surely.
Yeah, I think besides the clothing and the bar, because I was in advertising, like I said, when I just got my caps done, I got offered a job, so I was in advertising for 3 years. Back then it seemed like a long time, but now in context, when you look at it, it's only 3 years out of the past 10, so it was really a short period of time. But my short stint in advertising really shaped who I am today because of a few things, like how much of a perfectionist like my ex-boss was, right? So he drilled into me, like, you have to be this, you have to be that, like 50 ideas, 50 different taglines and things like that, right? When to not write too much, when to punctuate, don't use big words. All those things just kind of went, because we work like 18-hour days every day, even during weekends, back in advertising. So it was a really good training for me to be the person who I am today in the things that I do. So I took into details. I basically took all the little details seriously, all the things that normal people usually wouldn't care about. But I guess, all these little things made me who I am today and made the brands or the businesses that I have what they are today. That's great. On the side, I still get like writing and designing jobs. So I still do that from time to time. So I have like it's kind of like, how you and I both are. We have a lot of little things going on, jobs here, writing here, design there. So it's basically how it is for me as well. It helps. I wouldn't say no. I mean, I'm not at that position to say, oh yeah, I don't need this job. But if it's extra money, extra income, like, why not? Since I have the time to do it, so okay, let's just add this to the portfolio. For sure.
And there's both those aspects to it. Obviously, the money side is one that it's always necessary to think about, because we need the extra money, of course. But I think when you have people who do the kind of stuff we do, who have their hands in lots of things, there must be an element of not wanting to get bored as well. There must be an element of wanting to be distracted by different things, as opposed to using all of your time on just one project.
Correct. That's true. That was exactly how I came up with Backdoor Bodega, because I don't know if you know this. I don't know if I told you this, but the name for Backdoor Bodega basically came up as it was because I thought it was a very nice logo.
Yeah.
So I came up with the name. I can't really remember if I thought about the bar idea first, or did I come up with the branding for the bar first. But I remembered really well that because I came up with this really nice logo, I told myself I need to make this happen, to not let this go to waste. So that was kind of how the whole thing came about. And then having that extra space behind the store kind of helped, because there weren't any other cocktail bars in Penang at that period of time. So this was in 2016, 2 years after we opened the Swagger Salon flagship in Georgetown.
That's so cool.
I went back to Penang for my staff's birthday. So it was the 21st birthday. We went out for drinks. And then it was at that point I realized that there weren't really any cocktail bars in Penang, apart from Mishmash, which has been there for a couple of, since 2013, I think. Yeah, so it hit me, like, I could use this space as a little bar for my friends, because I don't really drink beer, because I cannot physically burp, so I don't drink carbonated drinks or beers.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so that's why I'm a cocktail person. And so it was basically a space for me to make drinks for myself and for friends, and friends started bringing friends, and they brought their friends, and strangers came, and I had to make it into a proper business with proper operating hours and proper menus, and that's how it is today. And I like what you said earlier about we always find things to distract ourselves and not doing the same thing. I think it's because of that theory itself. I find so much joy in doing what I do for Backdoor Bodega because I've been doing the same thing for the Swagger Salon for so many years. Like at that point, it was like 8 years, 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
So it was a nice change. I think about, I mean, I get to do different things creatively. So now they are in the form of cocktails and recipes and garnishes and menus instead of t-shirt designs and caps and, things like that. So
Yeah.
it was a really refreshing change. And I guess it really helped me creatively to have something else to work on that's not clothing.
That's the thing. You also definitely put your design influence into Backdoor because obviously it's all over the pins. It's the design, your photography. You can tell that that's something you love, but it's a completely different creative project. And sometimes it's nice to, it's not always that you need to do something completely different. It's just sometimes looking at it from a different angle and working on something that's not related.
Yeah. I guess in a way it really, how do I put this? It's kind of related and like everything, like from the start, like from the beginning, I would say, when, how we all realize at one point in our teenage lives that this is what I really love doing.
Yeah.
Like for me back then, it was graffiti art. So
Yeah.
I started with graffiti art, and then from graffiti art, that's how I embraced the whole hip hop culture. And then there's graffiti art, there's the whole rapping thing going on at the same time. And then it was because of graffiti art, I told myself that okay, I want to do graphic design when I finish high school. So that was how the whole idea of enrolling for graphic design came about. It was because of my love for graffiti art. And then you know how graffiti art and rap are part of hip hop, and then from there I get the inspiration to do caps, and from caps the clothing came along, and then after the clothing from the store you have the bar, and to what I'm doing today. So it all kind of links back to every single thing that I've had an interest in doing in one way or another.
Basically, it's because you're completely gangster. It's all because, that's why it all relates back to that. You've got graffiti, hip hop, cocktail. I mean, come on, completely gangster. That's it.
I wouldn't call it. It's pretty much things that an Asian parent wouldn't really approve of.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that too, as the son of Jehovah's Witnesses. I think that most of my branding stems from the person I became, so that my parents wouldn't approve of it. Yeah, something along those lines. And obviously, the whole graffiti thing, is kind of perfect with you being in Penang, because it's obviously got such a huge graffiti influence. There's so much going on. And I know that it's not all maybe the best graffiti ever, but there's still a big scene there, which is very cool and must have helped you start along that path, right?
Yeah, I was just looking at this newspaper cutting that I had in my room in Penang the other day. It was dated July 2004. So that's 15 years ago, and it was a front page picture of an ugly ass graffiti that me and my friends did. So basically, we sprayed like the word Penang. So in a way, we were kind of the first people to put Penang street art, inverted commas, on the front page of the newspaper.
Awesome.
before the Penang street art that we all know right now. Yeah, made it, right?
And you're saying it's not gangster. Come on.
We were young. It was fun, like when you didn't have to think about the consequences back then.
Was the newspaper like, this is cool or this is terrible?
That was exactly what it said. It said art or vandalism. That was exactly what it said. I will look it. I will scan a copy of that paper. I'll upload it one of these days.
That would be great. I want to see that. That's amazing.
It's really ugly though, the graffiti. I'm telling you first.
That's fair enough. I understand that, but it's funny because obviously Penang's embraced graffiti art so much since then.
It's come a long way,
and it's in quite a short period of time. From what you're saying, it's not taken. It's like in the last 15 or so years.
Yeah, it's not like Europe, where graffiti, like it still is a hate it or love it thing, like at this point of time.
I get that.
But in Penang, it's kind of like, I think it's also because of a herd mentality thing, where if majority of the people accept it as an art form, everybody is inclined to say yes, that is street art. I got into a really heated argument with someone online a couple of years back because you know how the rise of street art in Penang is due to um, like uh, like foreign artists, right?
Yep,
That did all the huge, nice murals. And at that point, there was, I think, a couple of disgruntled local artists who, just kind of like, yeah, when we did it, you guys said it was, it's vandalism. But when a foreigner does it, it suddenly you all are like, oh, this is street art, this is beautiful. So I was on kind of on the other guy's side because I know how it felt like. But I think it stemmed from a news article that one of the revered art pieces was painted over or it was vandalized, right? And I actually said that that's what street art is.
yeah.
Yeah. And then a lot of people came bashing me. They started getting really personal. Like, yeah, it's because of people like you. That's why this the street art is ruined and this and that. Or you're just jealous, blah blah blah. And I'm like, dude, graffiti, I mean, like street art is meant to be organic in that sense where, it gets painted over, it gets refreshed. Someone comes by and does something else. That's how it lives on. But these people don't get it. They just see it as a thing that you're supposed to worship.
Yeah, there's so many elements to this. There's the first element, which is that at the end of the day, it's an opinion as well. Like,
Yes.
it's a conversation, and people get so angry about the different mentalities. But
Yes.
I think that a lot of it comes out of respect as well, because I agree with you 90%, I'd say. I think that street art is supposed to be organic and covered over and change over time. At the same time, I think that street artists who are good learn to respect what to draw over and what not to draw over.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
don't, if you can't draw, if you're not good at doing graffiti, don't draw over a masterpiece with your crab, or don't just tag it with "I was here." Like, that's not good enough. So
that's
I think
that's disrespectful.
Yeah, that's disrespectful. So I think there's the element of both. As your work progresses, you get the privilege of choosing your space and taking up graffiti that at the end of the day is fading away most of the time.
Correct, because it's unless you're a Banksy,
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. But that's what I mean about respecting your art. If you see a Banksy, probably don't draw over it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like we have this unwritten rule back then whereby if you really, because walls in general, they don't belong to the graffiti artist, although the work of art is on you. So the way to do it is, if you really want to use this wall for your graffiti, if someone else has already painted over it, you apply a fresh coat of paint over the whole wall. Only then do you do your work. That's the correct way of doing it.
That's
cool. That's the unwritten rule that we have here.
It's those kind of things that obviously your opinion stems from knowing all those unwritten rules and knowing how it works in your area, whilst other people who don't respect that can easily ruin things and tread over other people's toes sometimes.
Yes.
So, from graffiti on to, because I've still got a couple of businesses you're involved in that I want to mention before we run out of time.
Sure.
And it's obviously Norm, which is my introduction to everything you do was through Norm.
Yes, you were there you were there first, and then to Backdoor, and then to.
I didn't even intend to go to Norm.
It was because of taps.
I was looking for taps. Yeah, a craft beer place, and they'd closed like a few weeks before, I think.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'll go into Norm, and they do cocktails, so that's perfect. I had a cocktail, and Jane had a chai tea, I think, or a matcha.
We got to thank Taps for that. But coincidentally, Taps just opened a permanent outlet in Penang just last month. So the next time you're back, craft beers are going to be easily accessible.
So Taps is the reason that I found.
And then you found Backdoor Bodega. Yes.
And then I found Backdoor Bodega. Exactly.
Yes.
So what was the reason for getting involved in Norm then? You've already got a clothing store. You're selling hats. You've got clothing. You've got backdoor bodega, and now coffee.
Apart from the side of me, like the egoistic side of me that wants to make sure that I'm not a one-trick pony, that I wanted to prove that I could do something else besides clothing. Norm was basically it initially stemmed as one of my design jobs. Actually, how I usually get like freelance design work and writing work. So
Yeah.
I do branding for brands from time to time. So basically, Norm was one of those things that it didn't start as Norm. Actually, it was more of a cafe branding job that kind of I just decided to take a share instead of a fee, I guess, for the branding.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I became a partner for the cafe. But how Norm came about was actually quite coincidental as well, because the team that formed Norm was supposed to be for another project that didn't really work out, and then it was also for coffee, basically. But the Saw Emporium, where you guys were at to look for taps, so the
Yep.
Saw Emporium, the guy who's behind the Saw Emporium, Tarin, he's a Singaporean guy, but his family owns the Saw Emporium, the land that the Saw Emporium sits on. So it was his pet project to do this whole F&B thing, which was like a multi-vendor food concept, right? So
Yeah.
he engaged me to do the branding for this project as well as his company. And towards when the project was supposed to kick off, he told me that one of the guys who was supposed to do the beverage stand kind of went AWOL on him and didn't want to be part of the project. So he asked me if I knew any alternatives. And so I roped the team that I was supposed to be working on for the other project in, and I told them, hey guys, you wanna do this thing first while we work on the bigger project, waiting for the bigger project to happen? And they said yes. So that's kind of how Norm came about as a replacement. Norm and Quench is the juice bar inside next to Taps in the Saw Emporium.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. So that's basically how Norm came about. And I kind of I kind of put in the concept of cocktails by night, coffee by day, cocktails by night, because since we already have I have the knowledge of running a bar, so why not make full use, because no one's going to drink coffee at 9 p.m., right? So
of course, yeah.
That's kind of how the coffee by day, cocktails by night concept came about.
That's great. And obviously then when I first went to it, I went to it at the Saw Emporium, and it closed down, but you've got a new venue now, yeah?
Yeah, it was quite coincidental that we happened to have that space rented a couple of months before the closure of the Saw Emporium, and so we just kind of moved over. But of course, it cost a bit more, so it's kind of whatever money we made during our course of time at the Saw Emporium, we basically had to put it into the new place. So we're kind of starting from zero again.
No, but that makes complete sense. How's it gone since opening at the new place?
It's done well. It's done better than before, I would say, because perhaps the location is a bit. I wouldn't say it's as hidden. I mean, it's also not very easy to find because it's still behind a row of shop houses. But I guess it's an independent standalone unit, so it kind of has its own personality, its own vibes that people really like. Because back then we were part of a bigger building, right? So this is like a standalone, independent little place that people really like to come and hang out.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
You haven't been to the new place, right?
No, I definitely want to. I've seen photos. It looks amazing.
Waiting for you guys to come by.
I obviously miss the coffee and cocktail, so I am excited. Like I say, we talk about going back constantly, and I think Penang is in the top sort of 3 places that we want to go back to and spend as much time as possible there. I'm pretty sure that next time we go, we'll do the same thing and probably stay 2-3 months, because visa-wise, it's very easy, and I don't think there's anywhere we'd rather be than hanging out with you every Thursday through to basically every night you're open, we are there. That is the idea.
That would be fun, man. That would be like I mean that it's a bit different now. Like I think there's a bit more life now at Backdoor and basically at the place where we're at, like Hinbas people, because I think towards the end of last year things started picking up for the area in terms like
Okay,
not just
awesome.
for us but yeah for everyone else. So it's a bit more lively now. Like our nights, even for Backdoor, it's a really consistent crowd. We have a good mix of tourists who I have no idea how they found out about the place, and
I
and
swear we didn't tell
regulars.
that many people, I promise.
Yeah, and our regular. So the vibe at Backdoor is really really lively now. Like it's not like back then when it was really chill, but Thursdays and Sundays are still pretty cool, pretty chilled. Joseph comes around every Thursday, like without
Nice.
fail.
Of course. Why
Yeah,
wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Where else would you be on a Thursday night
that's
other
true.
than other
Yeah.
than having
Oh,
cocktails?
and you can come have craft beer because Taps has this new place in Penang now, the permanent spot
Oh,
in Penang.
nice.
Yeah, so they opened their own spot in Tanjung Bunga. So craft beers if you're sick of cocktails.
No, so craft beer is Monday to Thursday, Monday to Wednesday, and cocktails Thursday to Sunday.
Sounds
Sounds
like
like a
a
really unhealthy diet.
a really good way to spend your week.
For sure, for sure. So the other place that I wanted to mention and ties into everything is you're doing a collaboration, right, with Dad's Woods,
Yeah,
furniture shop, boudoir. How did
boudoir.
that start? Because it looks absolutely stunning. The photography looks beautiful.
The the place is really nice. It was a project that kind of it started when okay, so the guys from That's Woods, they are the brother and sister, two of them. They were customers at my bar, and they run their own furniture store called That's Woods that specializes in wood slabs, like dining tables and chairs and stuff like that in town, right? So they recently kind of acquired this space, this nice I wouldn't say I think mid-century terrace house in Kalawai, Pulau Tikus near Gurney, and they did a really good job in renovating and transforming the place. And it was supposed to be like a additional showroom for their couch and mid-century furniture. So
Okay.
they wanted to add that little touch of having a bar in it. So when people come check out their couches, you sit there, someone can serve you cocktails. So that was their grand idea, and they came to me and asked me if I would be interested in setting up the menu for them, which I did. So I did a menu for them, and I think at some point after like a month or two of them running it themselves, they realized like they really need someone who can run a bar to do it, and they asked me if I would like to just take over the bar side of things, of boudoir.
Nice.
Yeah, and I because the place was really nice, I saw the potential in there. It's very different from what Backdoor is offering, what Norm can offer, but it has a totally different clientele. It's in a different neighborhood also. So I felt like, okay, this is something that I could try working on that's different from what I'm doing now with Backdoor. So yeah, so I basically took over the bar. I got a guy in. We redid the menu, and yeah, so it's still in its infancy, I would say, because it's only been a couple of months, like since we took over. We took over and we partnered them in February, so it's only May. It's only been 3 months, but I can start to see like the kind of customers that would come, the kind of customers that we would serve, and I
Yeah.
think we're slowly working our way towards making it better, I guess.
No, it's like I say, the photos look lovely. It looks beautiful. I'm just skipping through the Instagram at the moment because I'll put a screen grab of some of the Instagram pages so people can see how amazing everything you're involved in.
I cannot take credit for
looks.
for that place. It's really well done. I mean, these guys sell furniture for a living, man. They know
Of
how to make a
course,
place
yeah,
look
yeah.
good.
But it's not like the rest of your Instagrams don't look amazing as well. See, it flows. It looks nice. You've
Thanks.
chosen to be involved in something that's very tasteful, which obviously comes back to your taste.
This is something that I talked about with the when I mentioned the Soul Emporium, my client Tarin from Singapore.
Yeah.
I remember the very first conversation I had with him was at my bar as well. So he mentioned something about Penang being very complacent when it comes to the quality of things. About not besides the food, we're talking about branding and the creative side of things,
Yeah.
right? I think for some reason because the overall expectation of Penang people is not as high as you would say in KL or bigger cities like Singapore or Melbourne or Shanghai. People would settle for okay, if even if the design for this isn't as nice, if this branding isn't as creative, people will still buy my stuff. So
Okay, yeah.
yeah, so the producers, the makers, the businesses, they tend to be complacent. They don't go and do their best. And so you have this general feeling that things in Penang could be better, designs could be better, the creative scene could be better, but people just don't do it. So, which I really agreed with him. Like you can do 100%, but because your business will still be good, even if you're at 60%, people just settle to be at 60%, right?
Yeah,
So
I think that's a constant problem in business. Like people, as soon as they make money, they stop caring very easily.
yes,
Like
that's
when they
true.
get to the point where they're like, "Yep, making money. All right, I don't have to do anything else. All my energy goes into what's making me money."
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's also because like it's not as competitive as it is in the bigger cities, but I can kind of only see like the standards like probably in cafes because they are so highly saturated. So you can see that people put in a bit more effort in making their cafe stand out. But in every other business, I always felt that things could be better, whether it's your logo or the name of your business or the design of your shop or your leaflets, the flyers that you put out, all those things. As a designer, you really feel that there's so much potential in this brand, in this business to do better, but they don't because people will still buy that stuff regardless of how well they design, which I feel is a
Yeah.
pity. Like it's one of those things that you only realize as a designer because you take into account like all these little details. Yeah, so there was something that I really wanted to change because in the grand scheme, the bigger picture of things, if you don't improve your quality of work, um, designers from Penang, creative folk in Penang, they aren't going to make much money compared to people in KL because you cannot say that, oh, designers get paid so much in KL and Penang, they don't get paid just as much because you got to see the level of work that people are used to.
That makes complete sense. Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
so it's basically for a bigger cause where you start by improving the quality of your work and then you start to demand a better pay to justify the work that you're doing, or otherwise you always be at that level where you're getting paid peanuts for shitty design work.
That's
Sorry.
the thing. I think no, you're like that. That makes complete sense to me, and I think that it's the balance of how much of it is in a city that matters sometimes.
Yeah,
Because,
I guess
it's
the quality of work, that kind of you have to raise the quality of work to raise the level of expectations from the general public.
Yeah, and it's something that I wanted to talk to you about, and we'll keep it brief because I know that we're going over the hour now, and I do like to keep them sort of hourish long. But I wanted to touch on how much of how many venues, for example, with great design and people making things look a certain way is necessary within a city before it goes the wrong way almost. Some of our favorite places whilst visiting Asia were probably Penang and Hanoi in Vietnam. And I think the reason for those two is because they still have a big identity that is very much, in Penang's case, Malaysian. You've got the great food and you've got the streets that look like they're from Penang, and that is yet combined perfectly with cool places that you can go have a cocktail or a good burger place. But at what point does that become oversaturated, if that makes any sense, and it loses the actual identity of the place?
I feel the problem with Penang isn't so much about the oversaturation because as you know, like Penang cafes have always been a thing for the past, I don't know, almost 10 years now. No, like 6 or 7 years. There are always new cafes, but then it always levels out itself. Like with every new cafe that opens, there's bound to be one that isn't doing so well and it closes. So the risk of oversaturation is there, yes, but then it wouldn't be to the point whereby it's we're done with this. This whole cafe market isn't going to work. It's not, because it will still go on, because there's always a new one that's replacing one that isn't doing so well and things like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I feel the
I-
main problem that Penang. Oh, sorry, you were saying?
I was also thinking more about the fact of Penang having charm as something that's got a very Malaysian identity, as opposed to
when you lose it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So do you get to a point where it looks like London, for example, and no one wants to go anymore because there's so many cool cafes and cool clothing shops, and because obviously you were one of the first, which makes Penang stand out as different. But as soon as, if everyone
I
else
wouldn't
does
take
it,
that credit, but
but you know what I mean in
I know
terms
what
of
you mean.
there wasn't lots of places doing it. It's not like you walk down the street and every other shop is doing what you do.
I'm beginning to feel your sentiment in this. Not from the kind of businesses that operates, not that point of view, but rather the construction of things. Because right now I'm seeing Penang is really becoming much like Singapore. Not to say that
Yeah.
Singapore is bad, but you really lose that heritage charm of Penang, because a lot of these big companies, they are just buying up all the old houses in Penang, and they buy it by the block. They don't buy individual units, so they buy the whole block of the old pre-war terrace houses. And yes, they refurbish it, they redo the whole place, but then they all look the same. They're all given a fresh coat of white paint.
Yeah, that's exactly, yeah.
Same aluminum windows, same grill doors throughout the whole. It used to be different colors. Every house has a different color. It has a different window. It has a different door. And now we lose that identity. And it's sad because they really have no choice. The people who live there, they don't own the place, right?
Yeah,
They've been renting
exactly.
there. They've been renting it, doing their craft. There's a shoemaker. There's a glassmith. One fella that does signages, handcrafted signages, and due to two things. One, they don't have anyone to take over their business, and number two, because they do not own the unit, they are forced to move out because the owner obviously wants to give up that space for more money, which is to whether it's the Singaporeans or the Chinese or from Hong Kong, all these big companies that have money to spend on real estate in Penang, and all these suddenly become suddenly everything looks the same, and that's when we start to lose our touch, and you're stuck in that conundrum. You don't know if this is progress or this is, do you say yes to progress or say no because you want to maintain your heritage and, remain as a old school city?
Yeah, I don't think it's a yes or no type of answer. Like, I think the way you conduct business, and I especially saw it in Backdoor Bodega, is you need progress. You absolutely need progress, both in terms, like you were speaking of, quality of service, design. You need places that bring in younger audiences who are into cool, forward-thinking things.
Yep.
But you also give throwbacks to your culture. We talked about how many different types of local food and cuisine, and how many local ingredients do you not reference in your cocktails? Like, that in itself is combining the old with the new to create something that's still harmonious with what Penang is.
I try. I feel like the difference between Penang and I don't know, maybe it's just me being biased, but because I grew up in Penang, and Penang is a very, very small city, you are used to seeing craftsmen around town. Like, if you need something to be fixed, you need something to be done, you know someone somewhere that does it. You go there, they're sitting right out of on the corridor of their shop, they're doing, whether they're fixing a trishaw, whether they're building a table, a chair. You see these people, and I think as Penangites, we take it for granted because we see it so commonly. But I don't think, maybe in KL or in bigger cities, you don't see it that much. So that's why they are a bit different. But from Penang, we are used to growing up amongst all these craftsmen. So we as people, as we grow up, we are more open to doing things on our own, of knowing how to do things on our own and creating stuff and building things in a way, I guess, whether it's a recipe, whether it's making your own like tables, like carpentry, things like that, or cooking your own, opening your own food stall. I guess it's easier to be inspired when you're from Penang than, say, if you were in KL, because you aren't really you weren't exposed to all these things as often as you would be.
Absolutely.
You're growing up in
Absolutely.
Penang. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how you mentioned Singapore before. I think Singapore is an incredible city that works so well and is so
Yes.
safe and clean. It's incredible.
Yes.
But if you're looking to be inspired, it's maybe not the place to go. If you're looking to be inspired as someone especially coming from London or from any of the big cities in the West, you
Yep.
go to Singapore and it feels very similar, just cleaner and smoother. Everything
That's
works
very
better.
true. That's
But
true.
you go to Penang or you go to Hanoi or you go to even, it's starting to lose it a bit, but even Chiang Mai at the moment in Thailand,
Mhm.
and you still get aspects of how hardworking and resilient people are. And it's not by big companies with huge buildings. It's actually people starting their own businesses and working very hard.
Yes, I guess they have. Like these people, they have their own goals. Like they are content with their own achievements. They find success in doing things like this rather than climbing the corporate ladder or making a lot of money or things like that. Like they find the sense of achievement in doing their own business. Growing their own brand, like being like basically crafting their own doing their own craft, so to speak, which I think is something that we might lose if we continue progressing as a city, a modern city in Penang.
Yeah, which is a shame because I think that's what makes, for example, all your businesses stand out is the combination of the two. It's being inspired by that attitude and yet having good business, like knowing what you learned from your time in advertising. Like combining those two things, I think is generally the key to success.
Yeah, and I wish there's more of that. Like I had this conversation with a bartender the other day in KL, and only then did it dawn on me that there's actually a big problem because I don't see it because I'm always at my bar. I'm being me at my bar, right? But apparently there's a problem because there aren't a lot of local people who want to work behind the bar as a bartender or mixologist. So actually, you have like a good 40-50% of bartenders in Malaysia, mostly in KL or even Penang, who are foreigners, right?
Wow.
They come from the Philippines, they come from Bangladesh. You might not think of it as a customer, you don't see it that way. But if you're in the industry, it's going to be a problem because let's say they join a competition and you're supposed to represent Malaysia to go to let's say to France for a final, for a cocktail competition final. But then again, you are on a working visa as a Bangladeshi working in Malaysia. How does that go around?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of problem because, and the problem stems from no one, local people don't want to work in this kind of industries because, again, I don't know whether it's an Asian thing where you have to have a corporate job, or it's not one of those things that they're willing to work hard for. But eventually, we're going to see that shift and this is just in the bartending industry where you're going to have like more and more foreigners working behind the bar than locals, and then eventually across all the other industries, it's going to be the same.
And I think, that's what happened in the UK. Like, people came in and took over industries that other people didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And then you hit a climax where then the actual people from that country almost get annoyed and go, wait a second, all these foreigners have this job. And that's what happened in England. Everyone got angry and went, these foreigners have our jobs. And it's like, no, wait a second, you didn't want that job. No one was doing it. And they came in and helped.
That's true. I don't have anything against, like, because the guy that I was talking, because I really felt his I wouldn't say pain, his disappointment, because I mean he's Bangladeshi, so he's Muslim, and you know how strict we are in Malaysia about religion.
Yeah.
So like Muslims aren't supposed to touch or drink alcohol, right? But he's a bartender. He passionately loves bartending, right? He joins the competition, but because of the ruling, like you cannot, Muslims are not supposed to drink alcohol, things like that. He cannot pursue his passion, like even all the way in Malaysia right now. Like he wants to represent his bar on an international stage. He can't do it for like things like because he's on a working visa, things like because he's not Malaysian, he doesn't. Which is very sad because he's someone that I can relate to. We love doing what we do, but then he's restricted by things like this.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's one of the issues that needs to be fixed so badly. And I don't think it's one country doing it wrong. So many countries
Yep.
have got this wrong, and yet it seems so difficult for everyone to align and get their shit sorted and let people be happy and do what they want to do and travel where they want to travel.
In an ideal world.
I know, it seems like such a simple thing. Like, oh, I like Penang, I'll stay in Penang. But no, you can't do that because someone says you can't.
Yep.
Right.
That's life.
I think that we have come to a point where we should probably end the conversation, and at some point in the future, I'm sure we can do it all over again and talk about lots more things, because I was planning on talking to you about food and places to visit in Penang and all this stuff.
Oh,
but you're just too interesting to talk to, Shen.
I'm sorry if I talk too much. Right?
No.
I tend to ramble a lot.
That's exactly what I want for a podcast, is people who ramble and make me talk less. It's perfect. It's perfect.
Oh.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for having me, though. Like, it was a pleasant surprise.
No, it's an absolute pleasure, and I've really enjoyed catching up with you. And I will obviously link to all your businesses so that people can go to Penang and meet you in person.
And likewise, I will shamelessly plaster my voice all over the internet wherever I can, so that they come to this site.
Thank you so much. Cheers, Shen.
Thanks, Liz. Take care. The heritage and the people.
Thank you so much for checking out that episode of Promote the Hell Out of It. I hope you enjoyed it, because I really enjoyed having that conversation with Shen. He is such an interesting guy to talk to, and in fact we did not cover everything I wanted to ask him. I don't want to make the conversations on the podcast too long, because I want to keep them interesting and keep it flowing. But I will be chatting with him again, because actually the night after I had the conversation with him, there was some storms in Penang, and not any of his venues or establishments, but another one of our favourite establishments out there got flooded and has had to shut down. So I want to talk about that. I want to see if there's a Kickstarter going for helping them out in any way, and I will obviously place that in the description below if there is. But yeah, if you enjoyed that episode, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, but also to check out some of the other conversations I've had. Some of my favourites so far, one with Kelly Kemp, where I talk about Kurdistan solidarity, co-ops, intermittent fasting. I have another one with the incredible Jack from Waco, who is also a writer for Vice magazine. He's written for Sidewalk, and we talk about religion, spirituality, conspiracy theories. Those are two that come to mind. Another run that was really good was with Sarah, where we talk about how to get involved in the street art community and how to collaborate with other artists. So yeah, make sure to check out some of the other episodes, and thanks for listening.
It's been a while. I think it's the heritage and the people. The heritage and the people. I'm good. It's been a while. I think it's the heritage and the people. The heritage and the people.